Welcome, fellow fans of the written word. Welcome back to my setting. Here we are, back again. Whoa. And today I wanted to cover chapters 25 to chapters 35. And I have different distribution of questions versus predictions and things I liked. Not so many questions this time, but a lot of things I liked, other things I think will happen, other things that I was not sure about, but actual questions not as much. So let's start, shall we? And so chapters 35 to 35. Who do we follow this time? We follow at first Min, Siuan Sanche, Nynaeve, and Logain. They are traveling west and west of Lugard. And Logain is kind of retreating into himself again. He is not as, I guess, active and motivated as he used to be. His disposition is not one of rebellion that it was when they were escaping and where he was lecturing Siuan about getting his revenge. So whatever it is it just the melancholy, the suicidal depression that happens to most of the gentled channelers or something else? It is impacting him. But Min still sees an image, a vision of him being glorious. Glorious in battle, glorious in some other endeavor, we don't know. But there are great things that wait for him. And he is so quiet, so passive that Siuan actually regained authority over their party, their group. But also Siuan doesn't say where are they going, and Min is kind of miffed about it. I would be also. And Nynaeve is still playing her flirtation game, and to be fair, it does help them quite a bit. Better shelter, lesser they pay less money to the innkeepers. It gives them food and stuff, so it benefits them for sure. And Siuan leads them to a building that was apparently an inn in the past, and it's an old kind of deteriorated building, and they meet with 4 Aes Sedai there. So this was her plan all this time. Well, at least I think so. She meets with 4 Aes Sedai who are still on her side. So it's Sheriam, Carlinia, Myrel, and Anaya. I remember Sheria very well. I don't remember 3 of them all that much. I know one of them was white, I remember that. So Sheriam recognizes men as Elmindrada and they're kind of, all of them, the 4 Aes Sedai they meet, they are also very miffed about Logain being there, the false dragon, and she demands to know how they found them. And here they kind of confirm, they question Siuan about her, the things that only she would know, so that they know she's not an imposter and that she is who she is. And Nynaeve insists that they have been stilled, but they still have skills and knowledge enough that they can be useful to the tower, and the other four Aes Sedai agreed that what was done to Siuan was, even though it followed the letter of law, it didn't quite follow the spirit of it. It was kind of, she was ousted from her seat on a technicality, and a very unjust one. But to be fair, she did scheme a lot regarding to Rand, so they kind of have her there. And yeah, so she kind of presents her case, and they accept it. But they kind of agree to work with her and to maintain her as contacts. So, well, my dog just dropped something on the floor, doesn't matter. So they kind of create a strategy. They need to form a separate Emerald seat, and to me it reads like almost like a situation with Tibet, like a government in exile thing, which is interesting. So they need to form something that's called a Hall of Sitters, and then they can choose and vote for their own Emerald. So, but that would also mean that the tower is fractured, because the world doesn't have a clue about what's happening in the tower. There were some voices about the old Emerald being deposed, but they don't. The outer world doesn't know that the actual schism happened. That there are a lot of sisters who do not agree with the current leadership. So this is sort of a strategy they want to maintain, and it will allow them to destabilize Elida's rule. And they also discuss Rand and his whereabouts, and how can they not use him, but how does it affect their situation. And then our old friend, Gareth Bryn, enters the situation. And he has been following them, and they now have no choice but to introduce him to this situation, to reveal their real, true identity, to try and get him on their side. So that's it, I guess. And they question him why in all that is holy did he follow them, and he says that he claims that it was for an oath that they gave, but he has a thing for her apparently. So yeah, that much is known. And Min, meanwhile, is afraid that she will be held beholden to her oath, being a maid. So she tells Loghain to stay, and she sneaks out to see what's going on. And but Loghain kind of thinks that he's been sold out to the Aes Sedai. He's not happy. I wouldn't be happy as well, and he's already an unhappy man. So Min is now a maid, apparently. Min is now a maid, apparently. And that's all well, as much as the most important things that happened with Siuan and the group. Now we're back at Rand, and we have a very interesting scene with Kadere, the peddler, the shopkeeper, and he has been slipped a note that kind of references him as a dark friend. It says, "You're not alone among strangers, a way has been chosen." So we do know now that there have been dark friends. There are dark friends in the Aiel clans, and they're not exempt from the evil influence. And he also, Kadere, isn't really interested in meeting them, but then he's intrigued by this whole wording, chosen. What does this mean that the way has been chosen? He isn't aware that there are other dark friends apart from Lanfear around. So then we have a flashback towards his childhood in Saldea, and we realize we see the seeds of his evilness, dark friend status. So we meet his sister in the flashback. She taught him letters and numbers, but he had to kill her in order to keep his identity as a dark friend, and that kind of reveals a lot about him as a character. And then Isedre comes in to his wagon, and Isedre is the dark friend girl who keeps trying to sneak into Rand's bed. So she comes in, they chat, and she tells him that she cannot fulfill her mission, she cannot get near Rand. He insists, pressures her to try more, but she shows him that maidens have really crushed her spirit. She cannot do this. They shaved her head, they flogged her, they have broken her. She's done. And they even promised to give her to Avienda, which I wouldn't want to be given to Avienda either. She's a tough cookie. So she also tells Kadere that Rand is sleeping with Avienda, which I don't think at this point he is. It happens afterwards, but anyway. And Kadere does a very dark friend thing of strangling her, because apparently every time he strangles a woman, he recalls his sister and the way he strangled his sister. Just such a nostalgic thing, isn't it? Ugh. So he chops her up and disposes her body. So that's it. His bit is short but quite effective, I must say. So back to Rand. Rand is looking at the river. It's flowing through the town called Ironrod, and he kind of wants to get away from Moiraine's lectures. And there was a scene where a night before, he wanted to leave. He dismissed her, and she begged him to stay. Moiraine is a trooper. She's so motivated in this thing. And a group of riders approaches, and they are escorted by the Aiel. They are from Tayren and no, they're not. They're escorted by Aiel. Yeah, they're a group of local nobles. Yes, from Tyr, and they're led by people Mericin and Derekane, and they of course ask the obvious: did Rand, because he is followed by this whole suit of Aiel army, what Aiel against their nation. And he explains that no, I did not. A rogue clan called Shido are the enemies. They are in pursuit, and he wants to save the city. And Roark informs Rand that the city, last time he checked, which was 2 days ago, is still standing. So they have to hurry. And the nobles they meet, have been sent to get help. And they say that, yes, this was 2 days ago, but from what we know, the city it essentially has enough supplies for a week, maybe, not more. And the conditions are bad. The refugees are overwhelming the city, which is putting even more pressure and strain on their resources. Their time is very limited. So we move on to Foregate. It's destroyed. The food is almost gone completely. So Rand sends off the nobles, Maricin and Derkane, back to the city, to Karen, to inform the defender forces that he's coming. He's going to save them. And there is a bet apparently happening, which is quite silly. A man called Adorian will go with them, and he places a bet on them, he puts a bet on a presumption that they will get there in 7 days. And Rand doesn't have the amount he wants, but he and Sulin meet the bet. And after that they ride. And so they go. So Rand retires for the night, and he hangs out of the building that's chosen by the maidens, but embarrassingly he finds Avienda naked in front of the washstand. So Avienda panics, runs away. In this whole frightened condition, she opens a gateway and runs through it naked into what looks like a blizzard. So Rand sees that, well, she's an Aiel woman. She doesn't know what snow is. She doesn't know what dying of cold is. And even though it does get cold during the night, it's nothing compared to the actual blizzard. So he jumps after her, opens another gateway, and grabs a lot of clothes and blankets and follows her. And Avienda keeps running from him, and he keeps following her, and he's channeling a path through. And he catches up with her and finds her in the snow. So he tries to warm her up, putting blankets on her, pulls her out of the snow, but she's hypothermic, and Rand kind of constructs a snow shelter using 1 power from the snow, heats the air inside, puts Avienda in the blankets, but he seems to realize that that's not enough. So he takes off his clothes and does the maneuver from The Day After Tomorrow, where he strips naked and tries to the old skin-on-skin contact to warm her up. And they hook up. So yeah, fun stuff. So he uses 1 power to create a way out of the shelter. And he sees 2 people on some kind of flying beast. They're flying over them, and well, they realize, both of them, or he realizes, that they are far away there on a Shanshan continent. So the 2 women that were flying are Shanchan and him and Avienda try to block them off from one power, and they bind him. And two of them are a truth teller and a damane. What's it called? Yeah, damane and a truth teller. So they don't have much luck on containing them that long, so they leave at last moment because the gateway they opened is narrowing down, so they jump through it and get back, and they get back to the room, and Asmodean is waiting for them, and he asks about a thing that Ran has with him, and what Ran has with him is a scepter of some kind, a spear that was flung through the portal as they were escaping, and Ran decides to keep it as a reminder, and he lectures Asmodean about the fact that apparently you can rip through the weave, a woman's weave, which he saw Lanfear do once. So he gives Asmodean enough time until dawn to teach him how to do that. Also, something I forgot to mention a bit that happened before. The day after Avienda and Ran hook up, he goes into his old routine of we should get married because it's only proper and just, and she wants just to forget that the entire thing happened, and he is met with a big old no. That's fine. So that's Rand. Back to Thom and Nynaeve. Thom is practicing knife throwing at Nynaeve, which of course is kind of a surefire way to get her mad and go Super Saiyan. And Luca, the theater master, or whatever he is, insists on wearing a very revealing red dress, which makes her even madder. So they meet on the way back to Samara. They meet Aludra, the Illuminator girl, and she offers them a bunch of fire sticks. Nynaeve is skeptical because, well, it's kind of dangerous stuff, and they go through this whole conversation about Julin. She tells Julin that she saw Gallet in Samara, and they were caught between white cloaks, and the whole thing with the Prophet happened, and the Forsaken was on their backs, and Nynaeve needs to remember where the rebel Aes Sedai are gathering, the separatist forces, if you want to call them like that, and they just do a bunch of cooking and home stuff, but they go into the world of dreams. Nynaeve goes to the world of dreams, and she meets Brigitte, the hero of the horn, and tells her that she found Mogadiyed. So she offers to take Nynaeve for a brief look, but Nynaeve has to promise not to do anything, just to observe. And what we see is 5 Forsaken that have gathered, and that's too much even for Nynaeve. And the 5 Forsaken that have gathered are Grendel, Raven, Lanfear, Mogadien, and Samael. And Nynaeve doesn't make much sense of what they're arguing about, but Brigitte shows her this scene, And all of a sudden Mogadin shows up. He throws Brigitte at a wagon. I guess it's a dream wagon because they're in a mirror dream world. And Nynaeve, in panic, finds out that she is shielded from the One Power by the Forsaken. She tries to make Mogadin angry so that he kills her quickly, but Mogadin seems to have other plans for them, so Nynaeve then changes her tactic and tries to stall for time. So Brigitte hits the Forsaken with a silver arrow, and wounds the Forsaken quite badly, but not mortally. It misses the heart. So the Mogadin runs away, and Nynaeve wakes up in panic because she thinks that Brigitte is dead. But is she, though? Now we jump back to Mogadin and Mogadin POV, and she comes running out of her bedroom bleeding, and seeks for a dark friend named Chesmal, who apparently has some healing abilities. And he does, but the Forsaken is, when they're healed, apparently they're weakened. So Mogadin is cured, but she's weak. So Liandrin sees this as her opportunity to strike at her before Mogadin can defend herself. But again, Liandrin oversteps herself. Before she can do anything to her, Mogadin shields her and just throws her around like a hamster. And she does spare her, but she intends to punish her severely. Good. And Mogadin informs that the others that she knows about Nynaeve and Elaine and the whole cohort of people going into the world dream. So Forsaken leave, and something also quite, I wouldn't say cool, torture isn't cool, but what we're left is, the scene ender is Liandrin screaming. So yeah, Liandrin, you never learn. So back to Nynaeve and Elaine. Elaine is keeping watch on Nynaeve, and Nynaeve wakes up, jumps up from the bed. She's inconsolable, she's crying, she thinks that Brigitte is dead. And she tries to get angry enough to heal Brigitte, but she keeps weaving and weaving and weaving. But the thing with healing is you need to find something that's broken in order to repair it, and she doesn't seem to find anything that is broken, so she just sees that Brigitte is fading, she is disappearing. So Elaine begs her to stop, and they have an idea, really unexpected idea. They decide to bond Brigitte as a warder, and Brigitte is now a female warder, which is weird. It's really cool. I did not expect she has a warder now. But it works, it works. It has several side effects, like Brigitte is now thrown out of the world of dreams. She cannot meet her internal love Gaidal now in the whole reincarnation cycle. What effect is this going to have on a pattern? Is this the same as using balefire on someone being deleted from the pattern? Things like that. So that's it. That was it. A lot of things happened. So let's all move to questions.
5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
Questions. So at one point, Rand sees a weave when they're at the Shanshan continent, when they're through the looking glass, through the portal, and he sees a weave that he is pretty sure was not made by him, and it doesn't seem like it was done by Aviendha either. So who was it? Doesn't look like it was Asmodean. To me, it sounds like he would be too weak to do something like that. I mean, such a distance seems unlikely. So who was it? Other Forsaken, someone else? Who? Question number 2. So maybe I'm stupid, but I'm just interested in why Rand couldn't touch the Damane color. So when they see to Shanshan and they decide to block them off, he asks Aviendha to touch the Damane colors because he can't. So what was stopping him? Am I missing something? Did I forget something about the whole process of Shanshan and Damane and Damating? I guess I did. And my last question is, and I should actually just immediately reread that part about Brigitte. Where did her body come from? So I understand the whole summoning part. With the summoning, it's not like she just, well, she does. She springs into existence, but she's summoned into existence temporarily. But now, where did her body come from exactly? Kind of a bit unsure, but I'm sure I just missed it. But back to or onto things that I liked. And there are many things that I liked about this stretch of chapters. For starters, every time I think that some of the world building aspects were filled out, and I mean that in a satisfactory manner, Jordan seems to just come out and say, you ain't seen nothing yet. And I think that is the case with Brigitte and her whole existence, finding out that the heroes that are summoned by the Horn of Valir live into the world of dreams. I did not expect that, but it makes perfect sense. And the kind of order in which Jordan introduced and built up all these aspects felt very natural. So she's now out of the dream world. It expands on the lore of the heroes even more, but it doesn't feel like it was a random pull. It feels like an actual thing that was revealed. It was always there, but I did not know it yet. And also, it's really cool that we have a female warder, especially under such unique circumstances. I wonder how much of a major character she will be. She seems important. Let's move on to the second thing that I really liked. So I think this just expands on my first point, which is expanding on magic and just world building and aspects of it even more. So slicing through a weave. It's not mind-blowing on its own like Brigitte is, but it is a logical thing that just came up organically, because we find out that when someone wants to leave kind of a permanent magical mark or do something very elaborate, they weave magic. And it would only make sense that you can break through it, because if you can leave a trap, which Rand does, for example, in Tyr, it would be logical that you can break through someone's work. I mean, it's like just like leaving a physical trap. If you make a physical obstacle, presumably, rationally, someone could break through it, depending on the severity of it. So Yeah, that was great. Another thing that I really liked was Min, more of Min. Min was quite crucial to the characters with Siuan, Sanche, and I really liked that she was the center figure, and we saw a lot of her worldview. More Min is never a bad thing. I like seeing the world through her eyes, and her talent of foretelling aside, she just has this refreshing view on humanity. Uh, she is not a pretentious person, and I enjoy that. And she tends to give interesting observations about people and surroundings. Moving on to a completely different thing, but a thing that I liked, and let me preface this with, this might sound wrong, so I will try to word this differently. So, the killing of Isandre, the Dark Friend, it was quite visceral and it was impactful. So much about her, she was a minor character, but it allowed us to have a glimpse into Kadere's psyche, and that was powerful. That bit of story was powerful. It made me more interested in him as a character. He's not just a dark friend, he's a sociopath, or a sociopath who became a dark friend. I don't know where does the sociopath begin and the dark friend end, and vice versa. But the tale of his childhood and him strangling his sister, it was chilling. I mean, I could almost picture an image of, and there's a specific actor that springs to mind, of a very ripped Brad Dourif just strangling his sister. I don't know why, but I totally imagined Brad Dourif when I was imagining him as a character. Moving on, things I liked. Romance between Rand and Aviendha. It was cheesy, bordering on cheesy, I should say, but I don't think it ever verged into the sappy territory. And also, I really enjoyed that Rand launched into his spiel that was, to be fair, affected by his upbringing. He wanted to get married immediately, started discussing different customs between two rivers and such. And at the end of it, I was not interested. She was like, yeah, this was good, but you are promised to my friend, and this did not happen, and off we go. I think the build-up was well done. It was deliberate, yes, but it felt natural. I certainly can see where Brandon Sanderson, for example, was influenced when he kind of wrote a romance in his second Mistborn trilogy. I'm not gonna do any spoilers, but it's not exactly the same, but it has a similar vibe. I kind of see the inspiration that happened there. So let's move on to things that I didn't like. Well, minor thing, Leanne. I'm not sure about the whole Leanne flirtation angle. What purpose does it serve? Just on a purely mechanical storytelling level, we already established that, and several times, that the group relied on her charm to get by. We established this before. We know that thanks to her charm, they had lodging where they probably wouldn't have, and things like that. But in those chapters, there's a lot of that. Her flirting with a lot of people, with Logain as well. It feels like padding at the moment. I'm sure it's setting up something. I mean, either there's a roaring romance with Logain, which I don't see at all. I'm not getting enough of character development from either of them to be invested in it, nor from her. I don't care about her as a character all that much. So that feels like a padding at the moment. And another minor thing, which is also related to romance, and this just shows that romance in itself, and I said this again, in a fantasy novel, in any novel, is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It also can be done well and can be done not as good, just like anything, just like an action scene can be done well. So I mentioned that Avienda and Rand were done well, and it started sort of bothersome, but it built up to this moment. So maybe it will happen the same with Brian. He seems to have a thing for Siuan Sanche, and same as Leanne and Logain. So maybe those two pairings will get the same treatment as Rand and Avienda did. But at this point, let me just say, I don't mind the romance aspect so much as the introduction of Brian as a minor character who has entered the cast. So the way it was written, I don't mind the character in principle. I just don't care about him as a character. I don't care to read about him. There's so much other stuff, and when you read a book, a series that has multiple POVs, you tend to prioritize, to prefer certain POVs from others. Like, for example, I remember years and years ago in high school when I was reading A Song of Ice and Fire for the first time, I was really invested into Tyrion chapters, and I did not care for, let's say, Daenerys chapters at times. I would still read them, of course, but I would anticipate the other POVs. And when the new character was introduced, there would always be this, will they play a bigger role down the road? And here I can see that Brian will play a role of some kind in the future, but the whole plot of him demanding loyalty from them, they did this whole oath and he followed them and all that stuff. I just find it difficult to care about him. So I spend too much time about thinking how much I don't care about this character. I should shut up. And let's move on to the last segment, which is predictions.
Well, it's only a guess, but it's all I have to go on.
So, there was another mention of Logain's glorious fate, which sounds more and more to me like he will side with Rand in some way. I don't think he will be in any opposition to Rand. Rand has enough opposition as it is, right? But I kind of have a feeling that Rand will attempt to change some of the taboos, which he already did. But maybe he will try to change the taboo of channelers, or he will find to slow down their madness, something like that. It seems to me that he will find a new purpose, renewed purpose with Rand. Maybe as his general or something like that. Second in command. Third in command. I think Matt will be second in command. Yeah. And of course, another prediction is that Siuan will start a new new life with Brian. There is some attraction here. I didn't dispute that. I don't see Siuan as a homely type, staying at home and taking care of family type. I think they will be frolicking as equals. So that might be nice. And my last prediction is, well, Asmodean. Asmodean is laser numbered. I can clearly visualize a bullseye, a target on his head. He is toast. It's just a matter of time where someone finds out. He was almost found out by Avienda. Rand shielded him at the last second. So any one of these days he can be just... I'm looking forward to that. It will be amusing. So thank you guys for watching. That should be it for today. Until next time. And of course, thank you, Ethan, once again for your continued support on Patreon. And if you guys want to support, I'll link Patreon link in the description. And see you next time. Hope you have a nice November. Bye bye.